But I will be moving into my next topic. So, like I said, that topic is Maslow's hierarchy of needs. So I'll start off by giving a little background. So Maslow is well known in the psychological community, and so what most people know him for is his hierarchy of needs. And what I mean by a hierarchy of needs is basically that at any point in time there is there's a subset of desires and needs that a human or an organism, but mainly pertaining to humans in what I'm talking about at the moment, there is a subset of desires that is the focus of at least the subconscious level of thought. So what happens is that at any point in time, based off of environmental factors, based off of medical factors, the mind will align with desiring something in this subset. So that may seem a little out there, but I'm going to explain in depth more. So what happens is Maslow decided to define these subsets, and with anything in psychology, there isn't necessarily an exactness to this. There's a little bit of give here and there, and it's also open to personal interpretation, because as it is said by many people, that everyone experiences aspects of life in their own view, so it's hard to apply an exact science to an individual, because there's always that factor of randomness and there's always the human unpredictability. But what Maslow tried to do, and did fairly successfully because of how long his ideas have been in practice, he attempted to define a generalized subset of desires and needs for different situations. And he also found that these desires and needs sort of stack on top of each other, as in you need to fulfill certain desires before you can move on to desiring something else. So what happens is it forms his design and his overall structure for these subsets of desires is normally depicted as a pyramid or a triangle. So this triangle is broken up into 5 sections. So I will just quickly draw that out. There's 4, there's 5. So the idea of building a triangle is that the levels below a level are prerequisites for the levels above. So this first level here, this one, is what people like to call physiological needs. So, or physiological desires. A lot of people call them needs because the official title is usually Maslow's hierarchy of needs, so it's easier to just say needs. I'll try and stay consistent with that. So this level is the physiological needs. And what I mean by physiological needs is that this level is something that the human body physically needs to live in general. So these are food, water, air, and in some cases people will put sex and other tendencies into this category. So the reason that this is the baseline and this is the prerequisite for all desires is because if you think about it, if, let's say with the breathing aspect, if someone were drowning, you wouldn't necessarily think of them to have an existential crisis or to be trying to make friends. This person is just trying to get air, and in most cases, when a person is drowning, the actual conscious thought will be ruled out by the subconscious instinct to breathe. So what happens is when people try and hold their breath underwater, the human body will actually force itself to attempt to breathe, even if it's still underwater, just in a last-ditch effort. And it's similar to how people who are starving will become more and more desperate to find food. So and similarly with water. So this need is something that everyone in the entire world can relate, because this is the baseline of desire for a human organism, and for a lot of or actually for any organism necessarily. It's just harder to apply these topics to the more instinctual organisms. But the next level, so here, is safety. And so why this is safety is, or what I mean by safety is shelter and possibly emotional security. So this is something where you can find that a lot of homeless will have trouble with this and will be stuck in this category because they don't have that shelter and that security to ease their mind. So what happens is people in this case tend to be distracted and have a hard time making more non-emotionally driven decisions, because they are so focused on the fact that they don't have this security and this this feeling of safety. So like I said, even before you get to this level, you need to have food and water and whatnot. But then once you have food and water, then that's when you start looking for shelter. So a lot of these things can boil down to the order of how you would do things on a deserted island. So let's say you're stranded on an island. First you look for food and water, and then assuming that you're already hungry. So let's say you start out and you're running out of food already. So the baseline is you need food and water, because you need food and water to survive. But then once you have that, you can start building a shelter, and once you have a shelter, you can have the peace of mind to make more cognitive decisions and move on to higher thought. So after this level is the social level, and it's not always called the social level. I just find it's easier to generalize it as social activities, but that is a little bit of a gray area. So this social level is where the necessity for family and friends and possibly and loved ones comes in. So what happens is, and you can see this happen a little bit in the idea of, well, let's go with the idea of the deserted island. So maybe if you think about the movie Castaway, then Tom Hanks' character doesn't have anyone with him on the island, so he starts to become socially attached to Wilson, the volleyball, and this is to fulfill this social need for a feeling of love and a feeling of kinship. So, but the thing is, when he had already found shelter and had a source of food, so that's why he was able to start desiring this this social attachment. And so the next level is normally labeled the esteem level. So but what I mean by esteem, it's not necessarily being like self-centered or anything. It's loving oneself and having respect for others, but also being respected by others. So it's when you desire to be held highly in the eyes of others, as well as in your own eyes. So this is when people may attempt to maybe work out a little bit or something, just so that they feel more comfortable with the body they have, or possibly taking up jobs or something just to get that level of respect from the society. And actually, just on a side note, I wanted to point out the AI is actually making some very smart decisions right now. It's flattening out and going and chasing the next ball pretty profoundly. I just wanted to point that out because at this level it's starting to get a little more intelligent. But back to what I was saying. So it's, like I said, it's not necessarily like an ego for a sense. It's just being accepting yourself for who you are, and also and getting to a point where you can accept yourself. So maybe if someone were to reach this level, but they had a bad past of different drugs and whatnot, then they may attempt to better themselves to gain the respect of others and to gain the respect of themselves. So this is an important level, but it is difficult to get to, and it is where a lot of people get stuck in as well, because the next level is very difficult to get to, and it is also possible for a strange event to happen that would throw you back down the triangle to one of these lower levels here. But the last and the peak of the pyramid, the last subset of desires here is self-actualization, and this is a very commonly used title for this category. But self-actualization is when you reach a state of understanding, and you are in such a peace of mind that you're able to develop unbiased morals and creatively think. So this is where, when we think of perhaps a monk or someone who finds this state of bliss and can begin to creatively think and experience the world, this is this self-actualization section. Now, this isn't restricted to monks and people who meditate. This is a category that anyone can achieve if they can satisfy their desires in these other categories. So I will go back and I will just summarize. So the bottom level and the baseline level is physiological needs, which is food, water, and breathing, sex, and whatnot. What your body needs, and or at least thinks it needs to survive. Then the second tier is the safety category. So this is where a person will attempt to find shelter and security. Now, this shelter can be physical, it can be a structure, it can be a house, or it could be an emotional shelter. So it could be something necessarily like an attachment to something that brings you security. We see that with a lot of kids, like needing a specific toy or a specific like blanket or something to make them feel secure in their environment. And so the third tier is the social tier, and that's the tier of this is the point where people will begin to desire to have family, to have kinship, to have friends, and to be loved by others. And so it's a feeling of belonging. So you want to be surrounded by people who will maybe pay attention to you, but also acknowledge you for who you are. And then the tier above that is esteem, which is respect for yourself and respect for others, where people look up to you. And the way that correlates is that when people look up to you, you tend to view yourself in a higher manner as well. So this is love for oneself. And the final tier is self-actualization, which is unbiased judgment and morals and creative thought. So that is the general overview of Maslow's hierarchy of needs. And I will do a quick check to see if there are any questions. I'm not seeing any. If there are any questions in any of my sections, you're welcome to bring them up at the end. I will pause or if you just post them in the chat at any point in time, at the end I will go back and look to see if anyone has had any questions, and I'll attempt to answer those questions.